All right, so we are in good shape now. So let's start the webinar.
Okay.
Well, hello. We're live now. I still can't figure out how to get you to where you can put your face in. So look at the bottom of your screen if you can. Life's Co-Pilot is very excited. We have Deb Miller, who is a life organizer coach. And Deb is going to teach us how to kind of get a grab and go paperwork ready for an emergency. So Deb, I'm going to turn it back to you. But like I said, I'm trying to figure out how to make it to where you can
share.
I'll tell you what I'm going to do. All I can see here is I'm going to make you host. That way you should be able to do your share, like share your screen and stuff like that. So let's try that. So you now are in control. So you should be able to do anything you want to do.
There we go. Hey, now I'm back.
Well, hi, welcome. Glad to have you here. So
yeah, great. And I can share my screen somewhere. Share screen. And let's see if I can get this to share. Joe, come on. How about that?
Perfect.
Okay, great. Yeah. Good morning. So I'm excited to be here. It's a great time of year to start thinking about getting ready for organizing and getting things going for the next year. So that's why I put together the grab and go paperwork webinar for you. One of the first things I ask people is, why do we get organized? Why bother doing it? And as you can see, this is my reason for being organized. All of these are my children and grandchildren. It's a couple of years old, but it at least gives you an idea of why, what my purpose was to getting started. The other thing is that there are 12 million older adults that live alone in the United States. That's a lot of people who live on their own and take care of all of their own paperwork and all the information they have in their house. About 70% of those people are women who live alone, who are elderly. So that's a big percentage. And if they don't live alone, it's likely that one spouse in the house really does know all of the information. They share the information. They know where the bills get paid, all of that kind of stuff. And the other spouse is typically almost clueless when it comes to that kind of information. And anymore, children often don't live in the same state as their parents or their siblings. So understanding and knowing what's going on with an elderly parent is really difficult when you live states away. For example, my kids live in Tennessee, Virginia, and Illinois. So it was really hard for them to understand all the stuff that I have and all of the information and where everything is, because they don't live here. And as you all know, emergencies can happen anytime. In fact, I'm just now getting over COVID. I've been 10 days of coughing and hacking with the COVID virus. And, that takes you out of stuff. We also have things like home fires and weather events in Indiana that can cause us all kinds of problems. So who am I and why am I doing this? My name is Deb Miller. I'm an author, a speaker, and a consultant. I've been doing this for a number of years. I do a lot of business continuity and disaster recovery, and I created the My Life Organizer and the My Health Organizer to solve a problem that I had. Basically, I needed to have a way to organize all of the information so that it was available in case of an emergency in my household. I'm a member of a number of different emergency response organizations, including a ham radio operator and part of search and rescue. So getting started, what's the first thing that everybody should do? And that's make sure that you have and in case of emergency contact information. We call those ICE. And basically, you want to make sure that you have that information either on your phone or written out somewhere on and put on your refrigerator. Because if the emergency folks come into your house, the first thing they're going to do is look at your refrigerator and see if you've got information up there about who your contact information is. A lot of people put this kind of information on a note card in their wallet, just in case your phone isn't working and people need to get a hold of you. So having this kind of information is really valuable: the name, the address, the relationship of that person, and the phone numbers and how to contact them. That's the very first thing I would do. The next thing is then to start to gather your documents up. What kinds of information do you need to keep? And basically, you can gather your documents and keep them anywhere. I started off with a wire file basket, and anytime I got a new bill or something, it would go into the file basket, and then I would organize it and sort it later. You can use a briefcase, you could use a wheeled computer bag, scrapbooking storage boxes, anything that you have around that allows you to keep track of all of the information that you have and put it together in one place so it's easy to get to. Then the next question is, what kind of information do you even need to gather? If you're in an emergency situation and you need to leave your house quickly, or somebody needs to come into your house and take care of things, they need to know things like, who's your mortgage company or your rental company if you're renting an apartment? Do you pay HOA fees? And who do you pay them to, and where do they get sent, and how often do they send? Do you have a home equity line of credit? What's your home insurance like? Where is your property tax bills coming to? Do you pay specific for trash collection? In Westfield here, we pay as part of the city of Westfield, but some places pay directly to your trash collection people. So understanding where that bill goes and who pays for it is important. And then the other thing that people don't think about is, who are your repair people? Who do you call when there's something that's gone wrong? Do you have a handyman? Do you have somebody that you call and that knows your house and can actually come and help? And having that kind of information is the very basic, the very first start of, home ownership or rental ownership. Then there's all those other bills that you have, your utilities, your mobile phones, your internet, your television, all of those kinds of things. Where do you get those bills? Where do you keep them? Do you have them all so that you log in online to get to them? Or do you get paper bills that come to your house? And you'd be surprised at how many elderly people still have bills that come directly, get mailed to their house. So you want to make sure that you understand that whole process. Are there support people like landscapers or housekeepers that come in on a regular basis? Do you know who those are and how to contact them if there's a problem? And then, of course, there's your vehicles. And for some of us, it's just an automobile. Some of us have multiple automobiles. Some of us have motorcycles and RVs and boats and farm equipment and all of that kind of stuff. So do you know what the insurance is and where the policies are kept and what companies the insurance is through? You might have an installment loan on one of these vehicles, and how do you pay it and who pays it? And then there's, of course, the property taxes that we have to pay every year in Indiana on those kinds of things. And then there's the money. Where is your money coming from? Where do you get it? So do you have pay stubs that come in? Are you still working? You might be getting Social Security, and so you're going to get, a statement or an automatic deposit every month. Where do you do your banking? For me, I have personal banking, and then I have business banking, and keeping track of all of those kinds of banks and credit unions. Where do you go? How do you get access to them? Are they online, or do you have to go physically to the bank or the credit union? Your retirement accounts. Where are your retirement accounts? Do you have accounts that are following you from an old employer? So you have multiple accounts rather than just one. So understanding where those investment accounts and retirement accounts are, and having a copy of that statement is really valuable. And then, do you have a safe deposit box? Not everybody does, but a lot of people do. And what kind of information do you keep in that safe deposit box? For example, is that where your birth certificates and your marriage certificates and the death certificates and all of that kind of stuff reside? Or do you keep physical assets in there, like collectibles or jewelry, those kinds of things? So having a good inventory of all of the information and all of the physical assets that you have and your collectibles. Sometimes collectibles aren't worth anything anymore, but that doesn't mean you don't need to know what you've got and where it's coming from. I know when my mother passed away, she had over 800 Hummels, the little figurines that some of them were pretty big, and understanding what all that whole list of who they were, how much you paid for them, all of that kind of stuff is really important. And then, of course, there's the health insurance information that you need to know. And it's not just the actual insurance information. It's what are the known allergies? What surgeries have you had? What kind of health issues do you have? Have you been vaccinated? What medications do you take? What over-the-counter medications are there? And if you have pets, you need to know what pet medications there are. I know some folks have dogs and cats that require insulin and other kinds of medication for heart conditions and all kinds of things. So having those lists of information and knowing, who to call and what doctors you're using, what hospitals do you prefer? In some communities, there's multiple hospitals. Which one do you really want to go to? And then, do you have pre-planned funeral arrangements? Have you made sure that people know that you have that and where to find that information? And then, of course, there's your legal information, all the attorney stuff, who's your attorney? What kind of attorney is it? Is it somebody who is an elder care attorney, or is it someone who does wills and estates? Is it somebody who does divorces and whatever? All of that information needs to be collected somewhere so that so if something happens to you, somebody else can come in and do it. But if something happens and you can't get access to your phone or the computer, having this information in a physical form is really valuable if you have to go and look for things. I'd like to have a sheet of paper that has all kinds of personal information about myself, my grandchildren, and my children. That gives me a place to put things like, what's my social security number? What's my passport number? When does it expire? All of that kind of information. And if I have children, if there's a divorce or there's a custody arrangement, I need to know where that information is and who has it. As well as with grandchildren, do they live with their parents? Do they live, somewhere else? If they're grown, do they have their own house? That kind of information. So that's important, but also people forget about all the social media accounts that you might have. I have a friend who died 10 years ago, and she still has an active Facebook page because nobody knew how to close it. She, friends still post on it every year on her anniversaries of her death. So we know that it's still an active account. So do you know where your social media accounts are? Who, does someone have an Instagram account or a Facebook account or a LinkedIn account? And then the family and friends to contact is a really important list. And that sometimes it's on your phone, but sometimes if something would happen, I lost my phone for a month. I lost all my contacts that were in my phone. I couldn't call anybody without going to my computer and looking them up and then trying to figure out how to call them. If something would happen to you, who are the family and friends that you want to have notified? Do you have a list of those folks written down somewhere? It could be your cousin in Michigan that you want to have notified if something would happen and you were in the hospital or something like that. So that's another piece of information that we don't always gather. We kind of leave it to chance, and hopefully people remember who to contact. So I recommend something I call a grab and go binder. And so what is that? It's a place to keep all of your important papers and your critical information in one place. And it can be anything that you want to use for, but it should be ready to go in an instant, and it should be close by your front door or close to somewhere where you can get to it if you have to leave your house quickly. And what you put it in is not as important as having the information. But I like a grab and go binder that's a 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper in a zipper binder that has multiple file tabs, and I use sheet protectors so I can just stick stuff in the grab and go binder. And I like this style because it zips around and it has a place to put all kinds of other, it has a zippered spot that you can just tuck papers in so that you don't have to worry about making sure it's always up to date. You can, if you have a new paper, you throw it in there, and then once or twice a year, you go through your grab and go binder and make sure all the information is up to date. I use checklists as the table of contents to help me keep track of what all the information that I need to have. And you can see my grab and go binder is behind me on the desk. I really do have one, and that's what I use. So where are you going to keep it? You want to make sure, because this is really all your critical business, personal information, and you don't want it just out there for everybody to see. So a lot of times what people will do, they'll stick it on a closet shelf somewhere, in with other things. They'll stick it behind a piece of furniture so that it's available. If you have a couch up against the wall, you can tuck it behind your couch so that it's ready to go if you have to quickly. If you have what we call a go bag, if you're going to have to leave your house and have an emergency kit, you could keep it with your go bag or in the trunk of your car. A lot of times we scan the documents themselves and put them on a thumb drive and keep it in a safe deposit box somewhere so that it's not on your computer and it's not somewhere that somebody can just stumble upon it and have all your information, but you can get to it at some point. Or sometimes you can leave it with a trusted child or an advisor, and you might have a senior advisor that you work with that you could leave that information with. So how do you keep it safe? Well, one of the things is if you've got a binder, just a plain binder, you can label it something like recipes and stick it on your recipe with the rest of your recipes so that it's not obvious that that's what it is. I don't recommend sharing it until it's needed. So letting your family members know what it is and where it is important. but not necessarily giving them access to it right away. If you make a backup of the information, and usually that's, scanning the documents or making another set of copies, don't store the information in a file on your desktop that says, all my private information is in this folder. You want to make sure that it's hidden away so that if somebody breaks into your computer, they're not going to see it. I don't typically like using sites like OneNote or those kinds of things. I prefer something like a LastPass, which is a site online that encrypts your information. It's one of those sites where you can keep track of all of your passwords and stuff with a master ID. LastPass also allows you to keep documents on their site in an encrypted form so that it is more safe than just putting it in your Google Drive or your iDrive. So as part of this, there's a couple of things that I've got to add. I have a checklist that I'm willing to give to anybody who wants it, just needs to send me an email. It has all the table of contents of all of the things that we've talked about and all the things that you should be gathering. I also have a couple of documents. One is called an unexpected trip to the emergency room. And it's a checklist of things that you might want to take with you if you're going to an emergency room, especially with somebody who's older, who has a history of going to the emergency room. It has all kinds of just things to make the patient and yourself more comfortable as you're waiting around in an emergency room. The other thing is I also have a list of things that you might want to take if you have to leave your house and go to a shelter or go to a warming or cooling center, the kinds of things that might make your trip more comfortable. These are just kind of bonus information that I like to give out to people, because you never know if you end up in an emergency room. I know the last time I was in the emergency room, I was there for 5 hours before I really got much help. So having some information and having some other stuff with me is really can be helpful. So the other thing is, do you have go bags if you have to leave your house? Some of the things that you might want to consider. This is a picture of my emergency room bag and all the contents that go in it. That red folder in the middle is actually copies of my will, my living will, and information that the hospital or the emergency room might need to have in case of an emergency. So do you have first aid kits, an emergency kit in your car? All of those kinds of things are important, things we don't always think about. So I have put everything together in a small book called my Life Organizer. It's a workbook that you just fill out the information in, and you can buy it on Amazon if you want. It's $15 on Amazon, and if you want a copy of it today, you can send me an email and I'll get you a copy for $10. How's that? And some of the services that I provide as a life organizer coach is I can help you and your loved ones get organized. It doesn't have, if you live out of state or your parents live here in Indianapolis area and you need help getting organized, I can come to your house and help you actually do it. I can scan important documents onto an external drive. I can help you set up online bill paying, catalog collectibles, videotape the contents of your house, all kinds of other stuff that you might need. So how do you get a hold of me? I'm available at lifeorganizercoach.com, or here's my email and my phone number. Any questions?
No, this is great. So what, I don't know if anybody else has any questions or not, but what where do you get people to start? Kind of, you got quite a bit of stuff here for a lot of different missions. You have, you kind of have your bug out bag. You have, the different things you're doing here. Where do you recommend people put their beginning process?
I start by gathering up all of the documents and just putting them in a box. So as you get a bill that comes in, whether it's on the computer or it's mailed in the mail, I just stick it in that binder, or I'm sorry, in the wire basket or a box of some kind. This book that I sell is really a workbook, and it kind of guides you through the information that you might need, that you might want to have, and kind of leads you through the process. So the first thing in here is what's your emergency contact information. And then we start talking about your personal information and writing all of that kind of stuff down so that you have it someplace. But really just gathering that information up in some place. I know some people have a list of passwords or a booklet that they keep all of their passwords in, whether it's something like that. Getting all of that information in one place is really important.
Well, as I'm listening to you, it's I'm thinking I've pretty much got everything of mine in the cloud, with the idea that, if a phone goes down, the computer goes down, all I have to do is get on something to get in there. Well, the problem is if the towers are down, or if the internet's down, like, in a flood or a larger catastrophe, then I would have no access to anything. So that's what's a difference,
Yep, and that's a problem, because if a tornado comes through here and knocks out the cell phone towers, you could be without a cell phone for a couple of weeks. They try to get those back as quickly as they can, but then once you start, if there's a disaster, what we find is a lot of people are trying to get through on the computers and on the internet, and it goes down because it's not stable enough. They find that happens in, Florida frequently when the hurricanes come through. Getting adequate cell phone service, and maybe even just having the ability to charge your phone or to charge your laptop. You may not have access to electricity for a week or two. Those are all issues that you could have, and having that information in a paper format so that it's an emergency go-to is really valuable to have. It will help you move the process along if something happens.
Well, I was sitting there thinking about, I'm just, as we're doing this, I've been working with, my mom and my uncle, and dealing with them and different things with the aged issues. And it just dawned on me that, again, if things were to go down, then, I don't know the medical schedules and stuff like that, and the med names and location. I've got it access to it, but I don't have it on paper again. So that would be kind of challenging, so.
Yeah, it can be. And, we live in such a time where everything is electronic, everything's in the cloud, and everything is, supposed to be safe and secure someplace else, but you've got all kinds of worries about hackers and things like that as well, getting into your information. So you need to make sure that what you have is very safely stored, whether it's, and you don't share your passwords with people, and you have passwords that are not easy to guess, like birth dates and stuff like that.
So when you've worked with a client, what kind of a timing does it take if you're kind of doing a hand holding process with someone? how long does it take for them to get from point A to where they've got a pretty much a safe, grab and go bag?
It could probably take a week or two to really get to it. And that's not working 8-hour days. That's a couple of hours here and there trying to gather things up and getting things together, because you have to go through, maybe you've got it. A lot of places, people that I know have nice, neat file folders, and that's good. And sometimes that's all you need, is just to go through and make sure that you've got everything organized. But then there are some people who live in stacks of paper. A mother-in-law that I had was a hoarder. And we had papers, she had stacks of papers everywhere, and trying to go through all of that and making sense of it, it was really difficult. And the older we get, the less organized we become. We just sort of throw it in a pile, or we throw it away and don't worry about it. So it can be very difficult for children or grandchildren to come in and sort through your stuff and figure out what needs to be paid and what doesn't.
Another thing I was just thinking about is okay, let's say you've got this place rocking, you've got it all done, you got your bug out bags, you got everything ready to go. How often do you update that? Because that information is going to be constantly fluid, isn't it?
Well, you'd be surprised. Most people don't change things. Your insurance stays the same every year. Once you live in a house, your utilities don't really change all that much. If you do it, for example, when I update bug out bags, I do it in the fall and in the spring, because I've got winter clothes and then more summer clothes to put in my bag, rather than, I don't need a heavy coat in June, but I need a heavy coat in August or in October, November. So those are the kinds of things that we do. I also, because I'm putting them in my binder, I have that information if I have to go through it. And I haven't got it organized. It's a good way to just, as things change, just throw it into your box or to your bag so that you can update it. And I recommend twice a year, just going
Okay,
through.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're doing, I hadn't even thought about that, about as far as doing your winter clothes to summer clothes, in your bug out bag type thing. So that makes sense. So that would be a trigger point to.
Yeah, and if you have a bag in your car, you want to make sure that you've got, stuff for winter, like gloves and hats, and that the food that you're keeping in your bag is not expired, and it that kind of stuff. Because frankly, I've been stuck out on the highway with car trouble and was there for 5 hours, and having access to water and snacks was really important to me when I was stuck out there in the middle of the interstate with a car that wasn't working.
Well, I think at least, our generation was all taught that you basically, had like you have a blanket, you have something like the kind of things like that in your car, because, things do go wrong and all of a sudden you're stuck on the side of the road. Yep. And you could be freezing to death. You don't go out in your flip flops and drive through the snow, type thing. So, but anyway, yeah.
And unless you're going for a mani-pedi, and then you really want to wear your flip flops.
Yeah, well, I never could get that through to my kids, but anyway, it was no. So, but yeah, I think we had more of the previous generation did a lot better job of telling us to do those things, so, yeah. But anyway, so what would you recommend for someone, again, for their first thing out of the box? They're going to get started. You kind of go through and let's do, when you're doing work with someone or your book, does it kind of give people, okay, we're going to start here, we're going to do these things, and then once we get that done, we're going to start here? How does that process go? Because I think the whole idea could be intimidating, looking at doing all this.
Oh, sure. And that's where I think you start at, the area that makes the most sense. So for me, it's capturing personal information is pretty easy. You can just sit and write it down and know, what's my social security number? Where's my passport? What do I, all of that kind of stuff. And then I just start from the outside in. So I work from, okay, you live somewhere, you live in an apartment, you live in a house. So what is all the information that you need to know about the dwelling that you're in? And then I would think, okay, now, all right, so now I have bills to pay for my house. What bills do I have to pay on a regular basis? And then, I've got cars. Okay. What kind of insurance do I have? Where's my insurance policy? What's my agent's name and phone number, so that if something would happen, I could call, and just start logically, working a piece at a time. That's why I say I never work with somebody more than a couple of hours at a time. They can't focus that long. It's too nerve-wracking and too overwhelming to do that. So work a little bit at a time. I often tell people to block out an hour a day for a couple of weeks, and every day just spend a little bit of time going through and thinking through the process of what information do I need to keep, and where is it, and how do I do it? You don't have to use a grab and go binder. You can just use if you've got a file box where you keep your file, that's fine. I just find that having a zippered bag makes it so things don't fall out of my binder. I originally created this whole system using a Word document and a binder with just, the sheet protectors, and I would stick stuff in it. But I found that things would fall out as I'm carrying it around or doing whatever with it. So I went to the zipper binder just for ease of use, and it's got a handle on it. I can grab it and go.
I was sitting there thinking, just as we're doing this, is like, obviously you do it for you do it for your family, your immediate, in-house family. If you are at least one of the caregivers for an elderly parent or a family member, you probably need one of these for them as well. First of all, I thought you put it into your own, but what happens if you're taken out of the equation? All of a sudden, it's like, would anybody know to come to your place if your place was available to get into to get it? You
Yep.
probably need to have a separate one for each person in their apartment or what have you.
Absolutely. This book has a place for two dwellings on it. So a lot of times what I recommend is somebody write their information, and then if they're a caregiver for their parent or something like that, keep the parent information in the same place, so that you have it all in one place ready to go. And since this is a fill in the blank kind of book, you just go through and fill stuff out, and it allows you to keep it in some place that, even if you've got the paperwork that you've got and you've gathered, I like writing it down in here, because then it's someplace all together in one spot that I can grab this book and go and know that I have that information. And this will fit in a safe deposit box, kind of scrunches up, but it will go in a safe deposit box if you want to keep the information like that as well.
Like I said, like I said, it just dawned on me, you would need to have one in your house and other people's place as well, at least for the ones that pertain to them. So
yeah,
because there's no guarantee that you're going to be able to get there. So
Nope.
Well, very interesting. Well, why don't you show us again how they can get a hold of that book and how to hold of you real quick. So
okay. All right. The workbook is available on Amazon, Amazon.com. There's a product number there, and it sells for $15 on Amazon. I have some copies that I sell to people who want it, who I work with, or who just want to get started and don't know where to begin. And you buy them from me if you live in the Indianapolis area for $10. I'm happy to share them with him. That's pretty much my cost yeah, for doing that. And then, if you're looking for somebody to help you out, because, sometimes elderly parents don't want to necessarily share their financial information with their kids. For whatever reason, but you need to have that information. Sometimes bringing in somebody who's a third party to come in and help you organize, I can take some of that emotional baggage away so that it isn't necessarily, I don't care about your collectibles. I can help you catalog those, but I don't really care what you have. You might want to take pictures of your jewelry. You might want to, if you have appraisals of, expensive pieces, you might want to have that kind of information. You don't necessarily want your kids to know all of the information about your lifestyle at this point until they need to take care of it. And so I can be a third party that comes in and says, okay, let's get this information. I bring a portable scanner with me. We scan it right there in from that location. Nothing ever leaves your house. I never take anything out with me. It always stays with you. So that makes it a little bit safer, and it also means somebody else is got eyes on it that knows what to look for.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. I know we have some people who've been watching. I don't know if anybody's got any questions. If you do, please let us know. But anyway, like I said, I'm looking forward to getting this out. We'll get this message out to people to where everything is here real quick. So but I'm going to go ahead and take back host. I hope that doesn't mean your face disappears. Anyway, so.
And if anybody wants the checklists and whatever, just send me an email at deborahcmiller.com, and I will email them the checklists and the documents, the bonus documents, just so that you have a place to start.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. Well, you did get to stay with me. That's great. So we're all I just reclaimed the host, so it still worked. Well, anyway, thank you very much for coming, Deb. I think it was a phenomenal thing. I will have this video out on Life's Copilot here shortly. And if anybody has any questions or whatever, well, I'll also give a copy to you, Deb, so that you can do with it as you please as well. So
perfect. Thank you.
Well, thank you, everybody. I will talk to you soon.
Everybody. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.